I know what you mean by the ego. The ego grabbing hold of this. Aham Brahmasmi, I am Brahman. And then the ego claiming an identity. I really liked that when you described this lazy state, this state where the mind can't be bothered to do anything. And when it's not really responding to what's happening, things are happening, but the mind's not responding. I really like that. Then you then asked, because it shows me that you've been listening to maybe to my satsangs or someone else's, I don't know. But you asked, I don't know if that's a tamasic state or not. That's great. Because that shows your discernment's there. Remember, the tamasic state is the dull state. And it's very, and on the surface, the tamasic state can look like the rajasic state. Sorry, the tamasic state does not look like the rajasic state. Sorry, the tamasic state can look like the sattvic state, the peaceful state. Sleep and samadhi can look very similar. But while one is a state of being switched off and dull, and then the samadhi is a state when the mind is alert. The mind is responsive and alert, but quiet and at peace, but not asleep. Now, obviously, it's not always in one meditation session. Let's say you might achieve a very nice sattvic state, in which the mind is alert and at peace. And another time, you might drift into a tamasic state where it becomes dull and sleepy. Typically, when the mind is tamasic, you'll either fall asleep, or often, if your eyes are closed especially, all these other thoughts will come in, dreamlike. You might go into like a dreamlike state, like a daydream, or even a nighttime dream, or even a delirium type state. If people who ever had experienced delirium before, usually it occurs when you're unwell and you've got a fever, you're lying down, and suddenly all these strange thoughts and images come through your mind. That can often happen in a tamasic state. It's like a dreamlike state. But my sense is that at least some of the time when you're entering into this state, Sylvia, this is actually a sattvic state for you. I think it's a peaceful state. The mind is not so active. Maybe that feels a bit unusual for you. I don't know. But don't be scared of it. I think my advice to you would be allow that state to happen and then experiment with it. Be with it for a while. The other thing is that I don't know if I'm feeling this correctly, but it seems like you enjoy that state. It feels like that's a pleasurable state, a happy state for you to be in. That's what I sense when you said it. And that's another great thing. If you feel positive when you're in that place, that's often a good sign, especially initially. Later on, it can be a problem because if you get stuck in a happy feeling state, there can become attachment to these kinds of feeling states. But initially, it's usually a good sign. So my advice would be just to be calm. Allow the mind to quieten down. When the mind quietens down, we say, or I say, the mind is becoming more and more subtle. It's becoming finer and finer, less coarse, more subtle. And this is exactly the kind of mind that is fit for self-inquiry. Or to put it differently, this is exactly the kind of mind that will find self-inquiry easier. So I think just to become more sattvic, more peaceful, is good for you. But what do you think, Sylvie? What do you think of what I've said?
I did have a feeling it's a good state. However, because my mind is inactive, it feels like I'm not doing self-inquiry because I'm just sitting. I'm not doing anything. It feels like maybe I should be doing something because I'm not looking for the I. I'm not doing anything. But I'm not having any images either. It's just sitting, doing nothing. It feels like doing nothing. So is that the self-inquiry before or after that state? Maybe.
So the state of just being, in a way, is self-inquiry, but it becomes very subtle here. It can be self-inquiry. It can also be Maya. Essentially, it's good to just rest in being. That being, see, at first it's conceived of dualistically. I, Tom, for example, I, Tom, am resting in being. Or I, Sylvie, am resting in being. But then, and if it's done with that kind of attitude, then that's not self-inquiry. That's the ego practicing resting in being. Do you see? But what can happen in this practice is this. At first it starts off as Tom or Sylvie or whoever resting in being. So it's an ego doing a practice. Then what can happen, if you're attentive, meaning if you're alert and aware, which means if you are alert and aware, that means you're not tamasic. There's an alertness there. There's like a vibrancy there of some kind. There's an awakeness there. And the mind is either not there or almost not there. This is a very sattvic state. What can become obvious, what can reveal itself, is that it's not that Tom is abiding in being, or Tom is doing a practice called abiding in being. It's the being, which is what we are. See? It becomes, oh no, this body-mind that I thought I was, that I thought was resting in being, no. Being is what I am. And the body-mind is not what I am. So the identity has changed. You see? Know thyself. Know thyself. Know what you are. Know what you are. Know who you are. It's a question of self-identity. What do you think you are? What do you take yourself to be? Identity. That is the meaning of aham brahmasmi. It's different to the mind saying aham brahmasmi. When the mind says aham brahmasmi, it's the mind, the ego mind, trying to make itself into Brahman or something like this. It's trying to attain enlightenment. The teaching says you don't need to attain enlightenment. You are that already. You don't need to become Brahman or God or the Absolute, or you don't need to become enlightened or self-realized. You are already that. What obstructs our knowledge of this is all the thoughts, thinking, all the clutter, the mind, the ego mind. When through just being, the clutter disappears, there's an opportunity for this non-conceptual knowledge to arise. Doesn't arise as because that's the mind thing, but I'm verbalizing it. I'm verbalizing something which is non-verbal. I am not the body mind, I am being. but it doesn't arise in those words. If those words arise, like if you find yourself going, oh, I'm not the body mind, that is the mind coming back in again. Trying to claim its knowledge. Oh yes, I've realized I'm not the body mind. That's one of the ways the mind comes back in again. Irrespective of what the mind thinks or says, whether the mind says I am the body mind, or the mind says I am Brahman, or whatever, there's a deeper knowing. It's non-verbal, but again, I'm verbalizing it for the purpose of an answer. There's a deeper knowing, I am the absolute, or I am this being is what I am. But it's not the mind saying that. It's direct knowledge, direct experience of what you are. It's not this knowledge I am that is not brokered or mediated by thought. There's no thought involved in this knowledge. It's not normal knowledge. When thought is involved in knowledge, when thought's the middleman giving you the knowledge, that's called mediated knowledge. In the scriptures, they call it mediated knowledge or mediated experience. It's your experience interpreted by thought. And when it's unmediated, that's the direct experience. In Sanskrit, the word for unmediated experience is aparokshanabhuti. Now, some of you will just think, what did he just say? And some of you will recognize that word, aparokshanabhuti. Anubhuti means experience. Paroksha means mediated. And aparoksha means unmediated. It's unmediated experience, often translated as direct experience. Aparokshanabhuti. It's also the name of a fairly famous text written by Shankara. But I know I've digressed a bit into the Sanskrit there. The main thing is just to be. And then the knowledge can arise. If the knowledge doesn't arise and you still retain your identity as an individual, me, a Sylvie, a Tom, a whoever, then it just becomes a nice feeling state that Sylvie has enjoyed for a certain amount of time. At the end, you stand up and think, oh, I had a good meditation session. You can dust your meditation cushion down and put it back on the shelf or whatever. And then it's gone. Any meditation session, actually, the gains you get from it never really disappear. But the point is that because the mind gradually is becoming calmer and calmer and calmer, and we want this calmness not just to be when you're sitting on a meditation cushion, but to be throughout life. So this aparokshanabhuti, this direct experience, this direct knowledge, is never obscured. This knowing, intuitive feeling knowing is always with you, unbroken. But yes, I would recommend not worrying about who am I, just be. And then at some point, especially if you've been coming to these sorts of meetings, the mind will say, who's just being? Who am I? What am I? That question will spontaneously arise. What am I? Am I the body mind? Or is the body mind just an appearance within me? Within me being consciousness, within consciousness. We all have the experience that what we are doesn't change. That which is looking, that which is knowing doesn't change. Everything else changes, but not that which we are. It's just to stay with that. That being is what we are. That which we are cannot be known by the mind. So if the mind is looking, who am I, who am I, who am I, who am I, who am I? The mind will not find the answer. But through just being, you can discover non-mentally, non-conceptually, not thought-based, what you are. It reveals itself to you through silent awareness. So this is why the teaching is simply be still. The purpose of the question is to evoke you to recognize your true nature and to help you be still. That's why in Who Am I, Ramana writes, Ramana says, the purpose of all the teachings is to quieten the mind. So, by whatever means you are able to quieten the mind, that is good. Eventually, we will have to somehow ask ourselves, who am I? It might be a thought-based question, or it might be just like an impulse. What am I? I think the key thing is to be still.